If you're like me, you've worked really hard to build up your dream hobby farm or small farm. And the last thing you want to do is trust in chance that everything's going to be okay. You don't want someone to come and take away all of your hard-earned work or let a natural disaster destroy it, because it is literally irreplaceable. And all of our farms, of course, as they should be, are very different. So when it comes to insuring these things, it can be pretty tough. How do you figure out what your place is worth, what you need to insure, and what you don't need to insure? Today's video is about wading through the sometimes complex net of insurance to make sure that you're getting good value for money and your assets are covered. I've got Ree from Farm Style Insurance. Ree, how are you, mate?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
Not too bad. Now, you're off a dairy farm in New Zealand?
Yes, I am.
And you work for an insurance company now?
I do.
Well, it's good to know that we've got an insider in there. Now, Farm Style are coming on as a new sponsor of the channel. They're supporting us in delivering a wide range of content, but today we're going to start off with your area of expertise, which is insurance, and you're going to help us avoid some of those traps and make sure we do the right thing and get value for money.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
Now, before we go any further, it's really important to point out that this video is not designed to be financial advice, and you, the consumer, need to make up your own mind about insurance. What we're going to try and do, now Ree, you do work for an insurance company.
Yeah.
But you're just going to give us some general advice today that will help someone select any insurance policy to make sure that they're properly covered and that they're not over or underinsured.
Absolutely.
So with that said, and with that in place, let's get some general advice from the industry that will help you no matter what insurance policy you end up going for. Ree, I guess my first question with insurance is, why the variance? I mean, when I get quotes for this place, sometimes they'll quote me 8 grand, sometimes they'll quote me 6 grand, sometimes they'll quote me 4 grand. Is cheapest the best? Is the most expensive the best? Or do some insurance companies just not like the way I smell?
So it's called risk appetite. It's a term that we use in the insurance industry, and pretty much what that means is that each insurance company has an ideal thing of what they would like to insure. So there will be some things that they do like and some things that they don't like to insure, and that will reflect in their pricing. So cheapest is not always the best, but it's actually not always the worst either. It will vary differently depending on the individual property as well. Every property is different, and depending on which insurance company that you go to get a quote for, they'll either really like you or they might not.
So as a consumer, how do we know if we're just being priced away, they don't want to deal with us, or if the deal we're going for is actually better because it's more expensive?
So the first things to check is obviously that you're comparing apples with apples. So make sure that when you are getting your quotes that you are using the same figures that you're using every time that you get a quote, that you're reading the product disclosure statement, and you're making sure that what you're actually getting price-wise is for the same cover. So that's usually the biggest difference. So the inclusions need to be the same. If the inclusions are different, the price may vary dramatically. That's right, yeah. So each product is different and each product will be priced differently, and insurers will include some things on one side of the fence, and then on the other side of the fence an insurer might exclude those things as well. So it's always really good to make sure that you're comparing like for like. So I guess we're just really saying check the fine print. Exactly. Hey, numbnuts, sit. Sit. Paperwork. No. Read it.
Okay, Ree, so you've hit me over the back of the head and made me read instructions. You're better than most. And when I'm going through this, these are quite a dense document, aren't they?
Yes.
There are parts of this document that refer to other parts of the document. And so I see here I'm covered for destruction of livestock, but that's only if I take out a benefit that's elsewhere in this document. Why is it that we've got inclusions here that relate to other policies over here? Is that because we can chop and change and we can choose to exclude things from our quote?
Yeah, of course. So depending on the insurer and depending on the product, you might have the opportunity to only insure what you need to. So with farm style, for instance, you can take livestock if you need it. If you have a vineyard or if you have a citrus orchard and you don't have any sheep or you don't have any cattle, you don't need to take livestock, so you don't need to pay for it.
And so these other sub-clauses don't apply to you because you haven't taken out that section of the policy.
Correct.
Now, not all insurance policies will allow you to do that, will they?
No, it depends on the company and it depends on the product. You know, depending on the type of insurance that you're after, they might do it a one pack and you have to take the whole pack, or they might have a product where you can pick and choose what you're after.
And some insurance companies that bundle together insurance for smaller farms just use their big farm policies and they just apply them to the small farm as well, don't they?
Yeah, that's something that we've noticed, that a lot of small or hobby farmers are over-insured because they're applying a commercial farm pack that's not necessarily relevant to what they're actually doing on their small farm. So they might be getting a lot of benefits under their policy that actually don't relate to them, and it can be very, very confusing.
So the first thing that we should do is have a look at what you can take out and what you can leave in the insurance policy and make sure that we're not paying for stuff we don't need.
That's right.
Now, Ree, even if I do give this my full attention and I actually read it, there's some stuff in here that I probably am going to find a bit confusing. What should I do?
So best thing to do is, if you've got any questions or if there's stuff in the product disclosure statement that you're not quite sure on or you're finding confusing, best thing to do, write your questions down, go back to your broker or insurer, and they hopefully should be able to clarify and clear up any questions that you might have if you're not quite sure.
So I guess if your broker or insurer is not prepared to answer basic questions that you have about the product disclosure statement, it's probably a red flag, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be probably a strong indication that you should probably having a look around elsewhere.
Right, well that's the paperwork sorted.
Tim, we're not done!
So Ree, the paperwork never ends.
Welcome to the 21st century, Tim.
Solar panels. You were going to tell me something about solar panels. They're sometimes a tricky inclusion in policies.
Yeah, they can be a little bit tricky at times. Depending on your insurer will depend obviously where you can insure them, because each insurer will insure them in different places. So for instance, it's really important to let your insurer know where your solar panels are mounted to. So for example, with our product, to be considered a domestic solar panel, if they service your house, they actually have to be attached to your home roof. If they're not, and they're on your hay shed or your tractor shed, even if they're just powering the house, we actually have to put them under a different section to be covered, because unfortunately if you don't tell us that and a claim happens, it can get really, really messy.
So it doesn't matter what the solar panels are powering, it's where they're attached that determines how they're considered in this.
Yes, correct. For our product, you've got to let us know.
So these are the sorts of things that actually reading the instructions will help you with.
Absolutely.
Now, Ree, the other thing I find really confusing about getting insurance is that insurance companies expect you to come up with values for things that change all the time, because labour's just going up and up and up.
Yeah.
So valuing your fence, valuing your sheds, valuing your structures, it just seems like people just come up with numbers, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's definitely important that you guys are setting the sums insured on your policy, and how you come up with those values. You can use a range of different methods. For instance, for your fencing, if you've got a local fencing contractor, give them a bell, see if they can provide you with a quote or a rough cost per metre sometimes.
Yep.
To see how much it would cost to replace your fence. In regards to your home, the Insurance Council of Australia has got some really good tools in terms of like how to calculate your home contents, sum insured, your home building, sum insured, and then with your sheds, like your tractor shed or your hay shed, again, just get in contact with a local builder and they should be able to help you out with a rough quote or give you an idea of how much it would cost, including labour, because as you said, everything's going up at the moment.
And labour's the most expensive component for something like a fence if you're not going to do it yourself, isn't it?
For sure, exactly.
So assuming we've got insurance now, Ree,
Yep.
making sure our claim gets paid out is another thing, isn't it? Because if your stuff gets stolen, you need it replaced quite quickly. What are some things that you can do to make sure that your insurance company believes you?
So when you're taking out a new policy or when you're looking for quotes, when it comes to claim time, a few tips and tricks that will help it go a lot more smoothly. you, is having photos of like your serial numbers on your machinery, proof of purchase, so that can either be like a receipt or a photo and things like that, and just having like a general idea of like the contents of your shed and in your home. Anything like that can really help in the event of a claim, and you can provide that to your insurer as kind of like proof of purchase.
I actually had that Ferrari in the shed. It wasn't a 1948 Massey Ferguson.
Yeah, it might be a little bit harder to prove if you don't have a photo of your Ferrari.
So there are some red flags obviously that you guys look for, and if people are honest, that'll avoid having to go through that whole process, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Key things to remember when you're either taking out a policy or when you're making a claim is always stick to the facts and always be honest, and you shouldn't have any issues. Now
Ree, one of the topics that's gained a lot of traction on this channel, I've done a couple of videos on it in the past, is the prevention of farm crime and theft. It's all very well to be insured, but as an insurer, what would be your top 3 tips for preventing theft on farms?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of things. First one, if you've got lockable sheds, lock them. Number 2, take your keys out of your machinery. Don't leave them in there.
Oops.
And number 3, if you've got any cameras or if you've got any CCTV, any sort of surveillance, that's also a bonus.
So locks, take the keys out, and install cameras.
Yep.
I get 2 out of 3. Okay. One more question, Ree. How often should we check our insurance policies? Because you know I don't like paperwork, and I just tend to pay the bills. Once it's sorted, it's a headache dealt with.
For sure. So generally when it's time to review or think about maybe contacting your insurer or your broker is when there are significant changes to your property. So you're either upsizing, you're downsizing, or what you're actually doing on farm or using your property for changes a little bit. So for instance, if you're strictly a sheep and beef farm, but then you bring in bees, that's a significant change. It's a different activity, and it's definitely best to talk to your insurer because you might have to adjust your cover to suit it.
And even if they're not your bees, your insurance company should know that you've got a lot of hives on your property.
Absolutely. Even if you've got an apiarist that's, you know, using your land to put their bees on, it's still an activity on your farm and on your property, regardless of who owns the animals or who owns the bees. So it's definitely best to talk to your insurer.
And even your behaviour can change the way that your policy works. For example, going on a long break.
Absolutely. So for instance, if you decide, you know, you want to go on a cruise for a few months, or you're leaving the property unattended, or you're going away for a long period of time, if that occupancy piece changes with your house, it's definitely best to let your insurer know that you're going to be away. Tim, what the hell are you doing?
I think the solar panels got damaged in a hailstorm. I'm just checking.
Get down. We've got experts for that.
So Ree, if I think I've got a claim, what should I do?
So first and most important thing is to make sure that you and your family are safe, depending on the circumstances and the type of claim that you've got.
Yep.
The next thing is to try and reduce the amount of damage as safely and as easily as possible. If that's not possible, best thing to do is to write down exactly what's happened, when it's happened, if you can remember the time, as well as your policy number, so that you can call your insurer to lodge the claim directly with them.
And they'll provide services to do things that might be considered unsafe, particularly for someone who's in advanced years, like climbing a ladder.
Absolutely. So say for instance, if you've got you've had a hailstorm, you think there might be damage to the roof or the solar panels on your home, best not to get on the roof. Lodge a claim with your insurer, and they'll get an assessor to come out and do the inspection for you.
That's great advice. All right, I've just got to go up the ladder.
Hey!
Now Ree, a lot of properties like this one, people these days are looking at repurposing old buildings and turning them into on-farm accommodation. And that's something that they need to be open and clear about with their insurer as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. So when you're running sort of like a farm hosting or a farm stay on your property, that is what's considered a significant change, and it will affect your liability, but also how you insure the structures will also come into it as well. So you need to let your insurer know if you are conducting farm stays, because you'll need the proper liability policy in place, making sure that it responds when you need it to.
So that will cost more, and you need to build that into the cost that you're charging for the accommodation, don't you?
Yeah, depending on who you're with and the product, they might have an optional benefit like what we do, and that will incur an extra premium. But yeah, basically get in touch with your insurer, but it probably most likely will affect the premium, yeah.
Tiny houses. A lot of people are actually bringing tiny houses onto the properties to use them for hosting accommodation. And that's something else to be aware of too, because that's not like an existing structure like this one.
Correct, yeah. So we're finding that, you know, with farm stays becoming more popular and people wanting to diversify their income, they're looking at these cost-effective tiny homes, and they're a great concept, but from an insurance point of view, they are quite hard to insure, especially if they're on their trailers still. If they've got their wheels, not a lot of insurers actually like to insure them, so people are struggling to find cover for them. With an existing structure, that's a lot easier because it's permanent. It's considered a building. For us in particular, that's the sort of farm stay that we like, and we tend to stick away from tiny homes or caravans.
So tiny homes are a great concept, but make sure that they're insurable with your insurer, and it may change dramatically the cost of your insurance premiums. But if you're into pooing in a bucket, you've just got to do the extra work, don't you?
Might have to.